Thank you so much for listening. If you'd like to offer dana, then please do go to justthiszen.org/giving. Your support really does make a huge difference. Thank you so much.
Welcome to day 3. The peonies are opening. So the peonies are opening and we're right in the middle of our practice together. I'd like to deepen to this verse further, and I would really welcome some teaching from Flint on this. I've always been drawn to it to begin a Dharma talk. It's very beautiful. And what I can point to is that the Tathagata is thought of or defined as the one who knows and sees reality as it is. So we vow to taste the truth of the Tathagata's words. We vow to hear the music of the Tathagata's words. My sense of it is, it doesn't mean that an unsurpassed, penetrating and perfect Dharma isn't always available. It's more that we really allow ourselves to meet it fully as it is. And a kalpa is an unimaginably long period of time. So during our time here, we seldom, if ever, meet it. And I think of this beautiful wood here as something to see and to listen to remember and accept, to be as fully with it this week as we can, and everything else that's here, and everyone else that's here. Last night we explored a little bit in inquiry the issue of gender in our practice, our current practice and our history and our ancestors. And I was thinking about that, and an entryway for me was a chant I learnt about 65 years ago. And I wanted to start with what it was like to be a boy, because I can only describe that. And so this chant that you'll hear now has, for each name, it has a yes sir. Atwater, Britton, Brooks Hill, Collins, Gifford, Goldwyn, Green, Huggins, Keeble, Kemp, Lucas, Morrison, Raymond, Summerlee, Warsony, Whitehouse, Withy. And it's a chant I heard every year for 5 years at school, every day, twice a day. But interestingly, after that, the chant softens and it goes Susan, Margaret, Elizabeth, Jane. The whole feel of the chant changes, just as some of the chants that we have change with each verse. There was a definite feel of the male chant and the female chant. And 65 years ago, as a boy, you did woodwork and metalwork, and the girls did cooking and sewing and housecraft. And the girls would take home apple pies in attractive baskets and things that they'd weaved. And we took home metal plaques and boxes to put cufflinks in. I was very afraid of the metalwork workshop, the smell of oil and machines and that kind of activity. I was already reacted to, and the teacher, Mr. Wilson, didn't make it any easier for me to find my way with metalwork. And what I learned was that in that lesson, if you were useless, you had no respect. No respect. And so I dreaded those lessons. On the other hand, Mr. Samuels taught me that you can be loved even if you're useless at his subject, which was woodwork. I was not good at it, and he was a lovely man. And at the end of my time in the school, I went to see him to thank him. And he said, "You're a lovely lad, Gifford, and I think you'll do well, but keep away from wood."
Just to add, he married the daughter of a timber merchant.
So our reading was comics and magazines about the daring deeds of men. And our hobby activity was to build models of Second World War aircraft. In 1962, a group appeared on Ready, Steady, Go, which was a new groovy program. And this group is called the Beatles. And my father and I were watching it, and their hair was slightly over their ears. And he said, "You are never going to have hair like that." And of course his wish has come true. So I have that sense that we join the brocade where it is, with our new and our ancient thread, and we join it where it is, and we do our best with what's already there, and we take care of it, and we find our way into the thread and see what happens. Last night, Flint talked about longing for wholeness. Longing. It's a long word, isn't it? Longing. And there's a song by John Denver. It's called Country Roads. He says, "Country roads, take me home to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country roads. Take me home, country roads, to the place I belong. West Virginia, mountain mama, take me home, country roads." And the second verse is, "Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River, life is old there, older than the trees. Younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze." And I looked at the comments on YouTube after listening to it, and one of the comments said, "I've never been to America, but I miss West Virginia." I met John Denver once in 1980. We were living in an ashram in Los Angeles, and my job was to do washing up from 4 a.m. to 10 a.m. in the morning in the bakery, and there were these really big industrial kind of machines for making bread. And John Denver was visiting the ashram, and he came round. He said, "Hi, I'm John." And I said, "Hi, I'm Josh." and I couldn't get my marigold glove off. So I shook his hand with my marigold glove. And he had a lovely presence about him. And he died in an air crash in 1997, 17 years later. You never know. But I remember it clearly. I've got two perspectives on longing. One of the perspectives is the verse we say, "We offer the merit of our practice for the welfare of all beings everywhere. May all be relieved of suffering, free from longing, aversion and ignorance, and may we together realize the awakened way." So there's an invitation to support us to be relieved of longing. On the other hand, Coleman Barks, who is very much immersed in Rumi, says Rumi thinks that every human being has a core of longing in them, and he's not really sure what the longing is for. The longing, astonishingly, is for the longing itself. Two perspectives on longing. And I wonder if, for me, where is the suffering in longing, and where is the longing for connection, for wholeness that Flint describes? Maybe it's not one or the other, but both. He reads a beautiful poem by Rumi called Love Dogs. It goes like this. One night a man was crying, Allah, Allah. His lips grew sweet with the praising until a cynic said, "So, I have heard you calling out, but have you ever received any response?" The man had no answer to that. He quit praying and fell into a confused sleep. He dreamed he saw Khidr, the guide of souls, in a thick green foliage. "Why did you stop praising?" "Because I never heard anything back." "This longing you express is the return message. The grief you cry out from draws you towards union. Your pure sadness that wants help is the secret cup. Listen to the moaning of a dog for its master. That whining is the connection. There are love dogs no one knows the names of. Give your life to be one of them. Sometimes I do have a longing for place. And one of the places I have a longing for is the South Downs in East Sussex. And there's a point at which, when I'm on the train out of Lewes and I can see the Downs, I remember the freedom I used to feel when I was there. And I think about it sometimes. But when I go there, I don't feel it. It's not there. I see the beauty, but the longing is in my heart, in my head for something that is already gone. L.P. Hartley said, "The past is a foreign country. They do things differently there." Sometimes it's really hard to be present. And during the week here, sometimes I feel like I'm really here. I did yesterday when we were walking, like, oh, I'm really here. I'm really feeling a here-ness about it. And sometimes my head takes me away from it. Basho said, "Even in Kyoto, hearing the cuckoos cry, I long for Kyoto." And I wrote a haiku. "Even here at Sheldon, enfolded in the bluebells, I long for Sheldon." So in those moments when I'm slightly off or I'm really not there, I long to be there, to be fully, fully there. Trudy mentioned Kodo Sawaki Roshi yesterday, who was known as Homeless Kodo because he didn't have a temple. And I think that was intentional. He wanted to be a roaming monk. And an interview with Shunpai Uyama in March 1965, shortly before he died, he surprised the interviewer by saying, "From the time of our childhood, we are all homeless. If you think you have a home, you are mistaken." It's important to remember that we all do have homes, real homes, to distinguish between someone who's really, really homeless, but he's talking about the spirit of homelessness and the longing to be home, the longing for wholeness. In case 12 of the Book of Serenity, Dizang asked Huishan, "Where do you come from?" Huishan said, "From the south." "How is Buddhism in the south these days?" Huishan said, "There's extensive discussion." Dizang said, "How can that compare to me here, planting the fields and making rice to eat?" Huishan said, "What can you do about the world?" Dizang said, "What do you call the world?" So our question this morning is, what can you do about the world? What do you call the world? Where do you come from? If you ask a newborn baby, where do you come from? I find there's a real sense of, for me, of freshness and mystery. What is your face before your grandparents were born? And I asked my new grandchildren this when they were born, because they just come from somewhere. I don't know where. Suzuki Roshi said, "I discovered that it is necessary, absolutely necessary, to believe in nothing. That is, we have to believe in something which has no form or colour, something which exists before all forms and colours appear." So look at a newborn baby. We have to believe in something which has no form or colour, something which exists before all forms and colours appear. If you are always prepared for accepting everything you see as something appearing from nothing, knowing that there is some reason why a phenomenal existence of such and such a form exists, then at that moment you will have perfect composure. And at that moment you will have perfect composure with whatever you see, whatever is arising. If you know that it's come from nothing and there is a reason why it's there, but you don't know it. Gahal Gravan said, "Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of life longing for itself." And so are these woods. They are longing for themselves, and so are we. We are the sons and daughters of life longing for itself. A few weeks ago, I was making supper before our precepts group meeting. We were due to talk about and explore speaking truthfully and meeting others with openness and possibility, speaking of others with openness and possibility. So I was busy. My sense of it was I was busy. And there was a knock on the door. And I thought, oh, it's a delivery, okay. And I went and opened the door, and it wasn't a delivery. There was a young man there. And he said, "Don't worry." I'm not as threatening as I look. And I really didn't at that moment want to be in this place. My trajectory was to get the meal done and go and study the precepts. But there was this young man, don't worry, I'm not as threatening as I look. Imagine having to say that to someone when you come to their front door. In every door you go to. And he was, he'd been a prisoner, and he'd come out of prison, and he was selling electrical goods, had a rucksack full of electrical goods. And there was that moment when he took the bag off his shoulder, and it just broke my heart. So he started opening out the things he had. And then I was right in the experience. And he showed me various things, and I bought a torch. And then I thought, well, he's going to go to different houses. Different people will open the door. What welcome will you get? And I said to myself, don't you ever do that again. Don't you ever go to the door thinking you're busy, about to study the precept. And so I talked to him, and he was living in Blackburn, because he'd been in Yorkshire, where he got into trouble, and they've stationed him in Blackburn because he would then keep out of trouble, and he got out early for good behaviour, and he was very calm and present. It's like this was there was a real presence about him, a real teaching. And I said, I hope everyone receives you warmly, knowing that won't happen always. And there's Dawu, 8th century teacher, said, for true perception you must see right on the spot. As soon as you begin to ponder and reflect, you lose it. For true reflection, you must see right on the spot. As soon as you begin to ponder and reflect, you miss it. And with our reading of the Metta Sutra these last few days, I feel like I want to take it to the door. And the line that really I want to take is, let one do nothing that is mean, or that the wise would reprove. May all beings be happy. So, going back to the koan, I could say to him, there's extensive discussion in the precepts group this evening. He could say, how does that compare to me knocking on doors to redeem myself? That's my koan right now. We explore, and we explore deeply, but sometimes we just miss it. I almost missed it. I felt really ashamed. So what we do here is our training. This is our training for life. Suzuki Roshi said, I want you to do rituals until you're completely sure of your response to people. It's a strange thing to say, isn't it? I want you to do rituals until you're completely sure of your response to people. They're not separate from anything. They are a training. There's a beautiful exchange between Lungtan and Dawu. And Lungtan was he was given a house in Dawu's monastery. He was very poor and he made cakes and he supported his family by making cakes for the Sangha. And he used to take a cake to Dawu, and Dawu would always give him one cake back. So why do you do this? What is wrong to restore to you what is already yours? So he practiced longer, and he didn't get a lot of instruction, unsurprisingly. And after a long, long time, he thought, I really must ask Dawu about this practice, because he hasn't told me anything about the mind. So he went to see Dawu. Since I came, I have not received any essential instructions on the mind from you, Master. Dawu replied, ever since you came, I have not ceased for a moment to give you essential instructions about the mind. More mystified than ever, Lungtan asked, on what points have you instructed me? Dawu replied, whenever you bring me the tea, I take it from your hands. Whenever you serve the meal, I accept it. Whenever you salute me, I lower my head in response. On what points have I failed to show you the essence of mind? Lungtan lowered his head and remained silent for a long time. Dawu said, for true perception, you must see right on the spot. As soon as you begin to ponder and reflect, you miss it. When you come to the door, I open the door and greet you. In case 21 of the Blue Cliff record, Yunyan is sweeping the ground. And this is Dawu again. I'm just going to talk about the first two exchanges in this koan because they're relevant for today. Dawu came to him and said, you look awfully busy. Most of us are awfully busy all the time. And Yunyan says, there's someone who isn't busy. And it's pointing to the fact that we think we are in a certain state. I am busy. I am this. I am that. Stephen Mitchell says, this is a profound statement. There is one who is not busy, worthy of being inscribed in gold on the temple walls and on the walls of every business and government building in the world. To discover in you, as you, the someone who isn't busy, the someone who isn't unkind, the someone who isn't flustered. To discover in you the someone who isn't busy when the you think you are is busy. Who isn't upset when the you think are upset is to discover a great freedom. A great freedom. I often think I'm so busy. And I know that somewhere there is one who isn't busy all the time, waiting to be met, waiting to be seen, and waiting to be practiced with. That space And I also have a longing sometimes for that. Can't find it. But to know it's there is very, very encouraging. We need these encouragements. I used to think when I was a teacher in a comprehensive school, I used to think there must be a lovely school somewhere with really nice people who are really enlightened about education and who get on with each other and will have exactly the same values as me. I really thought that. And I'm so grateful that I couldn't find one. So grateful that I worked in what I would consider some quite challenging circumstances. But that was where the work was. That was where the challenge was, to create something beautiful in the most inauspicious circumstances. And I think that's what we do with our lives. We create something beautiful, from that boy who was brought up in that way. How do we do that with that girl who was brought up in that way, in those circumstances? And when we meet people in doctors' surgeries and in schools and in other areas of our life, if we meet somebody who's just attuned and kind and friendly, and we know they're working in difficult circumstances, but it's possible, and it's really, really healing, and it's inspiring. I love those people. And I would love everybody to feel there's a potential in difficult circumstances, in the circumstances we have, to make this life possible. One of the places I worked was in the youth offending team, and we had a project which had short-term funding. So it felt like a little piece of earth with some flowers on it that was existing on a rock. The circumstances weren't ideal for this short-funded project to be there. And I knew one day it would blow away. It lasted 8 years. And it was very beautiful because we had the freedom to create something like here. And sometimes, when you describe this practice and you say to people, well, we walk, and then we sit, and then we have talks about walking and sitting. You have to come here to feel it. And to some of the places that I've worked, you have to kind of go there to kind of feel it. So in this youth offending team that I worked with, we had a secretary called John. And so we had a small office, 7 or 8 people, and he could hear us talking to the people, the parents and the young people and the teachers and the police and everybody we worked with in the office. And so to begin with, he just did admin. And then slowly, he began to pick up things. If we were out, he would answer a phone call, and he would do it in the way that we would want it to be done. He learnt it like a bird learning to fly. And then he would, if our parents came to see us and we were out, he would make them a cup of tea and he would welcome them in the way that we would want to. Slowly, he became that worker, that support worker, over 2 or 3 years. And when he went to do the course to become a support worker, he was already a support worker. He was already the real deal. Because he'd been in an atmosphere where you watch and you learn and you hear and you pick it up. And in this practice, we watch and learn together, and we fly together, we swim together. And that's really a really beautiful thing to see, to create what's here in other places. And when I was talking yesterday, the day before, about the musicians, thinking about the kitchen, the cooks have created the music, and then you go and play the notes with them, and they lead you through the notes, and then you become part of the whole flow of that experience, which is what we do here. About 10 years ago, Trudy sent me this beautiful poem. It's called "Be Not Defeated by the Rain," and it's written by Kenji Miyazawa, a poet from the northern prefecture of Japan, who was only 37 when he died in 1933. And it was written in a notebook with a pencil in 1931 while he was fighting illness in Hanakami, and was discovered posthumously, unknown even to his family when it was published. This is what he wrote. And it feels to me like something about my experience of the precepts, exploring the precepts, but kind of the inquiry about, well, what is the world? What is your world? Where do you come from? This is the poem. Not losing to the rain, not losing to the wind, not losing to the snow, nor to the summer's heat, with a strong body, not fettered by desire, by no means offending anyone, always quietly smiling. Every day 4 bowls of brown rice, miso and some vegetables to eat. In everything, count yourself last and put others before you. Watching and listening and understanding and never forgetting. In the shade of the woods, of the pines, of the fields, being in a little thatched hut. If there is a sick child to the east, going and nursing over them. If there is a tired mother to the west, going and shouldering her sheaf of rice. If there is someone near death to the south, going and saying, there's no need to be afraid. If there is a quarrel or lawsuit to the north, telling them to leave off with such waste, when there's drought, shedding tears of sympathy, when the summer's cold, wondering upset, called a nobody by everyone, without being praised, without being blamed, such a person I want to become. If there is a sick child to the east, going and nursing over them. If there is a tired mother to the west, going and shouldering her sheaf of rice. If there is someone near death to the south, going and saying, there's no need to be afraid. If there is a quarrel or a lawsuit to the north, telling them to leave off with such waste when there's drought, shedding tears of sympathy when the summer's cold. Such a person I want to become. Thank you.